Michelle, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited about today's conversation.
I am really excited to be here. Thank you very much for your invite.
Wow, this is an amazing conversation we're about to have. So I'm excited for the audience and I'm excited for us. So this is going to be great.
Yes.
So Michelle, tell me, what's your mission?
My mission is to educate, inspire, and empower as many people around the world as I can.
That's amazing. How do you do that?
Through osteopathy and through AO scan technology. Those are the two ways I would say. But also with my books, I published 2 books as well. One book, Miracle Worker, and the other book is called Mental Clarity.
So Michelle, we've talked about what you do. Maybe you could share how you do it.
Yes. So I use my hands and I apply my hands in such a way to the person's body that I can then read them. Like I can understand maybe how they're feeling, what pain they've got. If there is just generally whatever is wrong, I can palpate that using my hands. And it's within minutes of putting my hands on someone, I can tell what is wrong through using a skill that I learned at university, which was 31 years ago. And then the experience of over 27 years working in practice by using my hands in such a way that you then become an expert within that field. And it's much easier to be able to engage with someone's tissues, that then you can read them better and understand perhaps how they're feeling and what they're struggling with. Because I'm reading the energy within the body. I'm reading the flow of fluid within the body as well, feeling for restriction and range of movement, quality of movement. And then with my hands, I use my hands in such a way then to promote movement in an area that's restricted or create balance to an area that's misaligned, bringing blood flow and drainage to an area. But all of it's using the hands in a particular way, also with intention, I think, and my spiritual side. So like an intuition, a kind of a knowing, I think.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And how does you mentioned at the very beginning it was about connecting with the brain and sound. How does that all connect together?
So the AO scan frequency is separate. That's using a type of technology which is based on quantum physics. I use that to be able to help people who can't come to my treatment room. So I help people all over the world using that technology because it uses the quantum physics, and that's my way really of reaching people, apart from using virtual consultations where I can speak to someone using Zoom and look at their medical history and evaluate what's going on and be able to offer support that way.
Wow, okay, that's incredible. Okay, so I think there's 2 areas for us to kind of go a bit deeper into here. So as we've been talking about the healing you've been doing via sound, let's talk about that, then we'll come back into the intuition, using your hands, etc. Because obviously it's 2 different types of healing. So as we're kind of talking about it now, and I know the story you shared with me before, which was just unbelievable. I could hardly believe it. Maybe you can talk about some of the patients that you've worked with, because it sounds unbelievable that you can treat somebody with sound. That's unbelievable. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't believe it until I tried it myself. So the technology uses your voice. It analyzes the voice, but it also analyzes the energy within the whole of the body. So every cell in your body emits a certain frequency, and this technology is able to read that. So it could be your organs, your blood vessels, whether you've got nutritional deficiencies, whether you've got parasites, heavy metals, risks of stroke. It enables us to be able to see perhaps what problem is on the horizon for someone. So it's before a physical problem usually develops. So it's really useful for me to get an idea, perhaps when I'm treating a patient or wanting to analyze the patient, to perhaps guide them. Then when we use this technology, it enables us to kind of get a little bit of a glimpse into the future in that sense, which is extraordinary. But I had to use it first. In fact, I was a patient receiving it. So that's how it started. I didn't go out looking for it. It was a case of I was having acupuncture. I regularly have acupuncture. I don't like to go perhaps longer than 6 weeks without having acupuncture. I love it. Not that I love the needles. I just love the effect of it. Also, it's nurturing, I suppose, for me. I like to have treatments myself so that I'm better able to help other people. And it was the advice of the practitioner who was giving me acupuncture. And she suggested that I use this technology to help with anxiety at the time, because I was facing many trials that I was going through. And I felt that I needed something to help me relax and not feel so anxious. I needed calming. And I knew that I would be under such pressure that I felt like I would need something. She suggested the AO scan technology, and she also suggested reading Psalms 91, which was also amazing. So I was able to use the technology to help me relax and feel very calm and composed, and actually a level of confidence as well when I was under massive pressure. So I could tell that it worked.
Wow.
And yeah, not only that, when I would listen to it, it felt like I was connecting at a much higher level, because I would feel emotional for no reason, like a happy sense, like experiencing perhaps what heaven would feel like. Just so much joy just by listening to this music, which was created by this scan technology. So that's how I found out about it. Started using it myself, and I was using it so much through my practitioner Julia at the time. And I then started to feel a bit guilty about keep on asking her for the scanning. And I thought, I think I need to have this technology myself, actually. So I did. So I decided to join and then receive this this tech that I could then be able to use on myself every day. So that then turned into me being able to use that on family and friends and then patients. So yeah, it is amazing because it analyzes the energy within every cell of your body, and every cell is communicating with another cell in your body. Just because we can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not happening. And this technology analyzes that. And the accuracy is extraordinary. So I had a patient who was booked into my diary. She was traveling from London to Worcester for an appointment. And the appointment was on the Thursday. She messaged me, I think, on the Monday, in distress about the appointment coming up. Her mother had just had a stroke. And the mother was given 72 hours to live. And the patient was more concerned about the appointment that she had booked with me and wanting to keep the appointments because she was in a stress response. And she was worried about cancellation charges. I'm not thinking cancellation charges at all. I'm thinking you need to be with your mother in hospital. So I was able to reassure her that she could come back anytime that she wanted. But how could I perhaps help her? She asked me if I could help her mother, who had just had a stroke. The mother had a stroke. She was given 72 hours to live. And if she did survive, then she wouldn't be able to walk again, talk, or eat normally. This was the prognosis. And within these 72 hours, I was in contact with the daughter about the appointment that was coming up, that she was travelling to see me. She asked me at that point, could I help her mother? could I perhaps go to London and do my hands-on healing with her mum? At the time, I didn't think that that was probably appropriate because the lady had had a bleed in her brain, and it is one of the contraindications if you've recently had a bleed, perhaps not to apply that technique. And so I decided that I would use the scan technology instead. So I said to the daughter, can you get a voice recording from your mother? Is there any way that you can get her voice? And she said, well, she's only able to grunt. There's only one sound that's coming out of her mouth right now. She's pretty much unconscious, but there's one grunt. I said, great, let's use that. So we used the sound because the technology only needs between 10 and 15 seconds of sound. And then it needs height, weight, date of birth, and a selfie photograph. So she took the photograph in the hospital bed, uploaded this information to me, and then I put it into the scanner. And it creates then, well, first of all, what it does is it analyzes 8,000 frequencies within the voice, and it pulls out 4 notes from the spoken voice, which are imbalanced. And then it creates music that we can listen to, which creates the balance. So that's what it did in this case. And the daughter needed to go to the hospital, put headphones on her mother, and allow her mother to listen to this music for several times a day. That was also a consideration for me, is whether it was my place to do that, to suggest it, because all the work I do is by consent. That's part of the training. When you train to be in the medical system, everything is by consent. And so this was a challenge for me in my mind to overcome. Was I actually doing the right thing in even providing this technology for the mother to listen to, because she could not consent to it? I had to trust that the daughter would know what was best for the mother. The daughter said she would like to try it. So she would be in hospital and she would put the headphones on her mother and play the music to her. So this is how the healing is created, is through listening to the music that technology has just been able to analyze and create using the 10 seconds of voice. So I would then be in contact with her regularly, and we would update the technology with a little bit more of the voice. So as the lady started to heal, there was a little bit more sound. So it went from 1 grunt to 2 grunts. And I was seeing this in real time, what was happening with her mother. So I felt incredibly privileged to be in that position as well, to share that journey with her. And it went from a couple of grunts to a few words to a full sentence in a matter of a short space of time. And 111 days later, the lady walked out of hospital talking and being able to eat normally. The prayer, the family are Christian, so the daughter was praying. So through the prayer and the biofrequency, it was miraculous. So the lady walked out of hospital, and last week, the lady then presented to me in my clinic in London. She actually walked up a flight of stairs and lay on my treatment table to receive the hands-on healing from me. And I've treated her now twice. And yeah, amazing to be part of that journey.
I got shivers even thinking about it. So she was given 72 hours to live after having a stroke, and the only communication she could give you was a grunt. How is it even possible for the technology? I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and this is so unbelievable. So it's just a grunt. That's it. So what's in that noise that the technology is able then to recognize, and then it plays back music, which then becomes healing for the body?
Yes.
Wow.
Because it's more than just the grunt. It's like the energy of that person. The technology has already been able to analyze her energy through quantum physics. So quantum physics is incredible. It's like it's another part of science, isn't it? But it's less spoken of. But it's the technology behind MRI scans. We see quantum physics in nature. We see it in plants, in algae. We see it in birds migrating, because birds will migrate using that kind of quantum, whatever it's called, I'm not sure the name of it, but it's how they navigate through the sky to fly so far. And it's how plants survive and algae survive. It's hard to understand it, isn't it? How it actually works.
Well, can you try and explain quantum physics in this context? Because I think that's I mean I'm struggling to even understand that fully. So go try and.
Well, I don't fully understand it myself. I just know that you can. It's like if you think about somebody, and the next thing is that they message you, and they could be the other side of the world, or you pick up the phone to call that person and they're calling you. How do you explain that? It's like when you get a gut feeling about something and you're right. I saw an experiment that involved a husband and wife, and the wife had got cancer, and they were taken into soundproof rooms within a building. They weren't in touch with each other, and they were both being monitored. The lady had monitors on her brain, so that they could see what was happening in the brain. The man was asked to send compassionate thoughts to his wife. And when he sent compassionate thoughts to his wife, which was easy to do because she had cancer, the area of compassion was then lit up in her brain when he was sending the compassionate thoughts to his wife. And that was the experiment, that they could actually see that. And it's like the experiments, it was the Japanese scientist who did experiments with water. Emoto, is it? You know the scientist? No, I may have said that wrong. But he did an experiment, lots of experiments, and other people have done lots of experiments since with water and with fruit and with plants. So you could, I'll explain the experiment with the water first. If you say unkind words to the water, and if you say kind words and loving words to the water, when you freeze the water, it looks entirely different. So what he discovered was, if you say loving words to water, when you freeze that water, it looks beautiful when it's frozen. There's structure, and it's beautiful. There's order. Whereas when you take the water that you've spoken anger and hatred, betrayal, words that are negative, and then the water is frozen, that water then, the crystals look disorganized, ugly, and a mess. And our body is 70% water. So we have to be really mindful about what we say and what we think, because we're influencing the cells in our body all of the time. And they've done the same experiment with fruit, where they've then taken strawberries, and you say positive, loving words to a strawberry, and then you say hurtful words to another strawberry, and you can see the decay and the mold growing on the strawberries that you've spoken nasty words to, opposed to the strawberry that you've spoken loving words to. The strawberry is hydrated, and it still looks red and fresh, whereas the strawberry that's been spoken horrible words to is dehydrated and turning to mold. And the same with plants in universities, where they've got the students to walk past a plant and stroke it and love it and be compassionate to it. And then you've got the plant that they've then been really angry And the plants that they're angry at just wither and die, and the plants that they love and approve of, they grow and they're beautiful. So that's kind of a way of explaining it as well, where you just, how can your mind understand that? There's a lot that the mind can't really understand.
Is it?
So,
It feels like, because of course the water can't understand the words we're saying, so
all
therefore
about energy.
it's the energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So when the lady was able to even utter the grunt or the word and the sentence later on, it was the energy within the words. Because when we speak, we can tell what mood that person is in, can't we? They might not tell you what their emotions are, but you can hear their emotions in their voice. And it's what they use in theatre and the cinema, films. You can see what's happening because of the music that they're using to play to you. So if they want the suspense, then there's a particular type of music that they'll play. They want you to feel fearful, or they want you to feel love or joy. So we see it there. And we can see it when you just meet with people and start speaking to them, you can tell a lot, can't you?
Yeah, you can just,
Yeah.
there's some people's energies that you can feel is strong and positive, and like you feel. I'll give you a simple example. There's a person in my life. I go to my hairdresser. That I've been to the same hairdresser for the last 10 years, and I always say to him, "It's not the haircut; it's the energy," because I always leave feeling great. Because he's such an upbeat, positive character. Like for whatever reason, our energies just. I look forward to seeing him. It's like going to see a best friend. He's become a best friend.
Yeah.
And then I think of other people that in my life, which I have to see I see on a regular basis. And I always know leading up to it, it's a negative experience. In it, it's a negative experience. And after it, it's a negative experience. It's just, it's the energy. It's not even the words. Sometimes the words are perfectly polite and reasonable, but there's an energy that's an undertone. But you just feel like it's just something not right here.
But you could then, in that situation, I would say to you, you could manipulate that energy ahead of time. So you could project love into that space before you go to meet with those people. And that would then change the energy before you've arrived. And you'll have a very different experience then.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So I have that particular relationship I'm thinking about. I've tried to focus on empathy and tried to lead it with empathy, which is they must be going through a difficult time. For them to be acting in that way, they must be going through a difficult time. It must be tough to be them. I've tried to do that, but maybe that's something I need to lean into more.
Yeah. I would practice it ahead of time, and not just on a day, but if you've got more time than that, because prayer works in a very similar way. That it works, and there's a very powerful prayer which is based on a Hawaiian prayer, Ho'oponopono. Don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh, I did hear someone talk about this in a podcast recently, but yeah, please explain though.
So that prayer, I am sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. You can change the people around you by saying that prayer. You can change circumstances by using the prayer. So if there's a difficult situation or a difficult person, you could have that person in mind, but continuously say that prayer. And the other thing is, if you try to look at maybe just 5 reasons that you could think of good things about that person as well. So it might be someone who's really difficult, awkward, negative, and you really don't want to be around them. But ahead of time, you've already been focusing on perhaps 5 really great things about them. It would definitely change the situation when you next meet them.
Definitely going to give it a try. Yeah, that sounds like great advice. The story just about I'm going to try not to butcher this. What's the words, the prayer?
Oh, Ho'oponopono. You definitely wouldn't get that
No,
one. That's a lot harder than the osteopathy.
Yeah. Well, I've learned that I need some healing today for my speech therapy problem, which I didn't realise I had until this morning. What, on the podcast, it was Craig Beck, and he was talking about it. He's a stop drinking expert, so he was talking about it. And actually, he was giving an example of where that prayer was used in a prison.
That's right.
So, do you know the story?
Yes.
Oh, you share
it's
it.
The book.
Okay.
Yeah.
You share it. It'd probably be better coming from you.
Well, I don't know, but and the book is called Zero Limits. That's the title. And I read it many years ago. So from my memory of reading the book, it was about a psychiatrist that went to work in a prison. He spent 4 years there, and the people in prison were not going to be coming out of prison. They'd committed horrific crimes. They were there for life. But he went to work in the prison. He didn't meet the prisoners. He didn't touch them. He didn't come into contact with them. But he stayed for 4 years, and he used that prayer over and over and over and over again. And over 4 years of saying that prayer, he was able to then cure every single one of the people that were in prison. And all of them were let back out into society because they had proven that they were cured of whatever mental illness that they may well have had, whatever it was they had. Because of that prayer. He talks about the prayer cleansing. So all through the book, cleanse, cleanse, cleanse. So when you say the prayer, you are cleansing yourself. And then by cleansing yourself, you're allowing everybody else around you to heal. So it's really good if you're in a bad relationship. I say this to patients that whatever bad relationship that could be, parent and child or husband or wife, if they use the prayer silently, they don't have to say it out loud, although saying it out loud has a different effect because of your voice box. The vibration of sound is different. But if you're saying that hundreds and thousands of times a day, then you will be helping to heal that relationship. So, and it works because since I started using this prayer, which is quite a long time ago now, it's probably 10 or 15 years maybe, miracles have been happening in my treatment room because of that. I really believe that it's through the prayer that my practice has changed, because it's now such a part of me. It's my go-to in my mind. Whenever my mind might go off on a tangent and be thinking all sorts of nonsense, but I'll quickly bring it back to the prayer. And I say the prayer hundreds and hundreds of times a day. So I've seen the effect of it with family, with friends, and with my practice, particularly with my practice.
And then when you're saying the prayer, are you thinking about a particular patient or a person, or how are you using it?
I will use it silently in my treatment room a lot. So when I'm not talking, I'm saying the prayer. I can be saying the prayer when someone's talking to me, I'm still listening to them, but I'm saying the prayer. The only time I'm not saying it is really when I'm talking. Haven't mastered that bit yet. So as many times as possible. And then I try and say it out loud when I can say it out loud, but otherwise it's just that I'm saying it within my mind. I say it in the night. If I wake up in the night, I say it. First thing in the morning, I'm saying it. Walking down the street, I'm saying it. So there's that aspect of it where you're just saying it and it's not actually aimed at anybody. Then the other time I will use it is, and encourage patients to use it this way as well, if they've got any disempowering, unsupportive, unkind thought patterns. We get the same things coming into our mind. Useless information, and you just want to clear it. This is just not helping you at all. Say the prayer at the thoughts that you're having or the memories that you're having, the memories that you're experiencing, just use the prayer at that time. And that's really powerful because it sends the thoughts and memories further away. And then what tends to happen is they don't come back as quick. Because often it's the same things that you keep thinking about. Whereas the prayer then is able to push the thoughts further away and they come back less frequently. And then you notice that when they do come back, it doesn't have the same hold on you, doesn't have the same effect. You don't get the same reaction because you've been using the prayer to cleanse the energy around that thought process that you're having.
It's incredible.
Mm.
So what's happening there? So you're cleansing your own internal energy, but then also, so if you're thinking about someone or you're in a room, or so that also somehow is cleansing that. How is it in? I'm thinking about those prisoners. How is it impacting those prisoners? So therefore, it heals them. So therefore, they act differently.
I suppose that's where the quantum physics comes in again, isn't it? The ability for that to happen must be that, if you're trying to find a way of explaining it. But I mean, because I've been raised Catholic, I've been raised Christian, and I'm spiritual, and I have a deep connection with God, more than I do so with the church. I have a relationship with God, and God is part of my life, my being. It's similar, isn't it, to when you pray, your prayers can be answered and miracles happen. How do you explain that? And how do we explain that our body maintains the temperature that it does? That we're sat here now being able to just breathe. We're living right now, like we are walking miracles. Like, how does a baby form inside? A sperm and an egg meet, and then you get this creation. Like, wow, how does that happen? Can you explain that?
Can't. It's
No.
fascinating, isn't it?
And the sperm chooses the egg. So, yeah, we can't get our heads around it. I think I certainly come from a place of trust. Because when you've witnessed something so many times, you trust it, you believe in it. But you have to experience it first to be able to create that belief. And then the trust comes because you've seen it so often. Yeah, I know I don't have all the answers. I try and understand it myself. And where I am now in my practice is because of these questions. I started to question myself and my beliefs when I was in my early 20s, because at the time, I would be having a relationship with God on a Sunday. I would only pray on a Sunday when I was younger. When I think about that now, I think that's just ridiculous. That's crazy, but I did. I don't remember praying apart from on a Sunday. And it was so funny because I had so many prayers to say in an hour when I went to church. Because part of the service, you'd be reflecting on maybe your sins. What have you done wrong? What could you have done better? And then part of the service also would be about praying for other people and maybe your intentions. So I was finding like 1 hour service on a Sunday, it wasn't enough. I couldn't I couldn't say enough prayers in an hour. So I laugh at it now, but obviously at the time I thought that's what you did. And in my early 20s, probably around when I graduated as an osteopath, that's when I really started to dive deep into my being and to try to understand, where do my beliefs come from, and why was I going to church on a Sunday? What is God? Who is God? What are these prayers, and why is there evil in the world? Why is there destruction? How does life happen? All of these questions that I was going through in my mind. But that has helped me to be where I am now, and to create that trust in my creator because of that journey that I've been on, and a huge roller coaster in between of devastating moments, really traumatic, upsetting moments along the way. But every single one of those has then created this trust and belief and this inner power that I have because of all of those, because all of them have actually been an opportunity for growth rather than being a victim and feeling sorry for myself and ending up remaining a victim rather than the victor.
I think we all come to the challenging times that you've been through, but before we do that, I think maybe it would be good to explore the healing side of things, and you can share about how that's working with your hands, and so maybe share that, then we can go into kind of some of the challenges I suppose you face because of it.
Yes. So I trained to be an osteopath in 1993, graduated in 1997. I wanted to be an osteopath at the age of 13. So already at that age, I knew I wanted to go into natural medicine of some sort. I wanted to help people to heal, wanted people to feel happier, have more joy in their life, and recover from pain or illness. And I knew that at 13 because I had witnessed my mum doing that, because my mum is a healer and my mum still does healing now. And I was brought up on natural medicine. We didn't go to a doctor. We had remedies. We had reflexology from my mum and homeopathic remedies. And she enabled us to heal ourselves. I have a brother, so both of us, we would be able to heal from things, illnesses, through my mum's touch. So at 13, I thought I want to do something similar to that. And at the time, there wasn't a great deal of choice. It was being a chiropractor or being an osteopath. Because I didn't want to do what my mum had done, which was to go on so many training courses. My mum was continuously learning, which, I thought I want to have some fun. I want to go to university. I want to socialise, but I want a degree. And it was appealing seeing my mum work from home and seeing people come in looking pretty miserable, and then hearing a lot of laughter, and then they were going out full of joy. And I thought, I want some of that. I like that. So at 13, I decided. Then I took the right GCSEs, and that was even a struggle because I didn't find it particularly easy at school. And I just wasn't very good at chemistry. I didn't take physics. There were two subjects I could take, and I took biology and chemistry. And I wasn't very good at chemistry, and I really struggled through it. And in fact, I failed GCSE chemistry, but I knew that I needed it to be accepted for the training to be an osteopath. So I had to, and I'd already chosen that would be the A level, but I'd failed the GCSE. I thought this was a disaster. How can I do an A level and a GCSE that I've actually failed? Back then, a fail, I think, was a D. And I would have needed at least a C. But because of my determination to do this degree in osteopathy, I managed to retake the chemistry GCSE, pass it, go on to study A-level chemistry, pass it, and then to be accepted at the university in London, the British School of Osteopathy, then when I was 18. So I moved from a tiny town called Bromyard in Herefordshire to London when I was 18, and there were no halls of residence. So my mum had to find me accommodation. My mum and dad had to find me somewhere to live. So then the degree took me until I was 22. Graduated at the age of 22 with a degree in osteopathy, and I set up private practice at that point. And I worked as an associate as well for a short period of time. Actually, probably a couple of years at the same time that I was building my own practice. And then I was able to treat pretty much head to toe for all ages. The degree course was incredible. It was amazing and I loved it. And osteopathy has been around since 1874, so it has a long history. The degree in osteopathy, though, was very structural, very mechanical, and not spiritual. Although osteopathy is spiritual, that side of it wasn't actually taught, not that I remember anyway. I don't think it was, as part of the degree. So that's why then, when I graduated, there was this part that was missing. for me, it was missing because I had all these questions. So the degree was a fantastic foundation because osteopathy is about the body being able to heal itself. The founder of osteopathy in 1874, he was a surgeon, a doctor, and at the time they were needing to experiment with medicines. They didn't have pharmaceutical drugs at that point, and they were killing more people than helping them to heal because they didn't have anesthetics, they were doing surgery. People were dying from meningitis, from pneumonia, from chest infections, diphtheria, tetanus. So, and the osteopath at the time, he was helping people heal from these conditions. So he was saving lives. He was saving more lives than the medics at the time, just by him using his hands applied to the body to then manipulate the body in some way to be able to promote this healing response. But he was spiritual. He did have a connection with nature and with God. And he said that osteopathy was the child of God. Osteopathy's father was God. But that wasn't then translated into the degree course. The degree then we didn't talk about that. We just talked about structure governs function, and the role of the artery is supreme, which is the work that I do, of course, but I also add the spirituality to it, which is what it was always meant to be anyway. So the idea of osteopathy is that if you correct the structure in your body, the function then will improve or normalize. So, and then if you bring blood flow and drainage, then also you bring healing. So you have to have movement, and you have to have flow, and you have to have alignment and balance. And if you have all of those things, the body then does the healing. So when we work with patients, we're not really the healer. The patient underneath our hands is the healer. They heal themselves, but we promote that response of healing within them. I've gone a very long way around the question that you asked me.
I'm absolutely fascinated. So it's I'm glad you've been able to explain kind of the background and what you've had to do to kind of get to where you are, because you've gone through many years of education and university to kind of get to where you are. I suppose my question there is, well, why do you feel like the spiritual side was missed out? Do you think, what do you think was behind that?
Pharmaceutical industry,
Okay.
I would say, because they've got the monopoly. And I think they know that if people were in touch with their spirit, their spiritual side, have a relationship with God, then, yeah, without using the words like the Satan and the devil and the if you've got God, then it's like you need to think there's also Satan. That's perhaps another podcast. But if you've got spirituality, you've got everything. You don't need for anything when you've got spirituality. And so at large, the world doesn't connect very well spiritually, because we wouldn't have the need for the pharmaceutical industry if that were the case. Because the pharmaceutical industry is a huge business and it controls everything. And the history of osteopathy and the history of natural medicine has been controlled by the pharmaceutical industry, because there was the Flexner report, I think in like 1918, and at that point they dismantled the homeopathic colleges, the chiropractic colleges, the osteopathic colleges, anything that was natural. It withdrew all the funding and closed. They were closed down and shut down, and they couldn't then be trained in these natural modalities anymore. And the funding all went to the pharmaceutical colleges where they were training doctors. So thousands of practitioners then left, they couldn't either continue or then they weren't coming into the professions. It was manipulated a long time ago, and the manipulation has continued. And so I think probably that's the answer, is it's the spiritual side has been deliberately removed for the control and to keep people sick, to keep people struggling.
Wow. With the healing that you're doing, you mentioned a word earlier, which I'm going to pick on, which is intuition. Because sometimes I feel I have a belief here where people just, if you lean into intuition, you just know the answers. You get a gut feeling, and I feel like that's what it is. You have a gut feeling, and you know the answer. You know the right thing to do. But I think some people have something far bigger and far greater, where it's not just for yourself. So that's where I feel like the intuition, the gut feeling is what to do for you. But I feel like some people, maybe like yourself, you have the ability to use your intuition to help other people. Where do you think that comes from?
I think there is a consciousness, like a higher consciousness that is there for everybody to tap into, which is like what you can't see. You can perhaps feel it, you can't see it, but it's there. And somebody like myself then somehow through the path then that I've walked has enabled me to be able to tap into that higher consciousness. It's a different dimension. And it's not like even an awareness of that, but it's something difficult that it's hard to explain it, but it's a different dimension. Because I can see and feel and sense things that other people just totally unaware of. And I think it comes from that. It's being able to take yourself into like a different dimension, but energetically, on an energy perspective, consciousness. And that's there.
Yeah, and then when you're healing, when you're practicing and you're healing, what's going on at that moment for you? What are you feeling, or what are you thinking? How's that manifesting itself?
So, two different approaches that I take. The craniosacral approach, which is feeling the fluid of the cerebrospinal fluid, which is a fluid that bathes the brain, the spinal cord, and all of the nerves. And it's the cranial bones, and it's the tissue around the brain as well. That's very light, very subtle. The other side of osteopathy then is much more mechanical. So it's more hands-on, massaging, stretching, like muscle energy techniques, manipulation, articulation. And it's you see me doing a lot more with my body and the patient's body. It's a very different treatment. All of these techniques are taught at undergraduate level. So when you're training to be an osteopath, you learn all of these techniques. The craniosacral work is what's the hardest. We're taught for 2 of the 4-year degree course how to do that. But it's really, really hard. I mean, you end up graduating not even sure about what you're still feeling because it's so subtle. And like you have to almost find a stillness within yourself to be able to feel what's in the patient. And it's to start with you deny it yourself as well because it's so subtle. You just think, is that it? Like, really? Is that what I'm meant to be feeling? I was expecting something bigger, but it's not. It's tiny. And that's the energy within the tissues that I'm feeling. The other side of osteopathy is much more, you're feeling something that's swollen, you're feeling that it's inflamed. But even that, a lot of people don't feel that. So you may have a chiropractor or a physiotherapist that wouldn't feel that degree of inflammation because we're using our fingers perhaps in a slightly different way. But we feel for vertebrae, for example, the spine, we feel for it being out of a line. So I could feel a rotation within a vertebrae. And then the idea is with the treatment techniques, then you'll be using stretching and massaging and articulation to promote that joint, that vertebrae, to come back into its normal position where it should be. Because then you'll affect the nervous system that way, you'll affect the organs in that way. So yeah, that either looks like I'm not doing anything, although there is a degree of movement. So I'm not completely still when I'm using the craniosacral work. My hands do move, but you don't see a great deal. Whereas the other side of osteopathy, you see. So if you're going to put someone in a position to do a particular technique, it's obvious what you're doing then. I struggled to start with using the craniosacral on every patient because I knew the placebo effect wasn't there. So the placebo effect is that if you believe something's going to work, it's going to work. We didn't have that with cranial osteopathy because you are cradling someone's head, and how can the patient feel like you're going to do anything with them if all you're doing is cradling their head? Whereas if you're massaging and pulling and stretching, it's like you've already promoted that placebo effect in a way because they think, oh, she's doing something. If she's stretching me, that feels better. I'm going to feel better. You don't have that with the craniosacral work. And I had to battle that myself to continue to pursue it despite not having the placebo effect there. And again, it might have been easier not to do that because I had so many other techniques I could have used, which the placebo effect would be there because if you click something or stretch something, it's obvious. And so the patient, you already promote that reaction in them. Oh, that feels better. Great, thank you very much. Just heard the click. Feels great. But with the craniosacral work, they're probably thinking, what is she doing? She's just wiggling my hip side to side, or she's just wiggling my neck side to side. But the improvement is there. Almost in some cases, it's immediate anyway. As soon as the patient is sat up, or when the patient is lying there, they feel something. It could be that they feel tingling in their feet, and your hands are on their head, or they might feel warmth through their shoulder blades or their back. But anyway, I just decided that I would continue to do the craniosacral work, even though the patients may not be that satisfied. Because until they felt the response of treatment, the satisfaction probably wouldn't really be there because it feels like you're not doing anything. And the number of patients that come back and actually say, I didn't think you were going to help me because you hardly did anything. But I'm admitting it to you now because you did help me. And I'm telling you that I had no belief in what you were doing. How could you get me better with just that light touch? I expect you to be big and muscly and pull your weight on me and throw me around the room. That's how you're going to get me better. You're not going to get me better by just cradling my head. But so that's kind of how it looks. And it's all done with hands-on palpation, we call it. It's feeling. And you end up being able to feel the body like nobody else can feel the body. Like you connect with the body and you can just feel the energy within the tissues. So I can feel blockages, I can feel barriers, I can feel misalignment just with my fingers. And it's a skill. It's like learning a musical instrument. I wouldn't be able to play the violin or the piano, but people do because they've learned the skill. So this is a skill. But the extra part, which is the spirituality, I think then brings the miracles. You've got a miracle with the body because the body is a miracle, so you're working with that. But then also, if you're also as a practitioner also connecting spiritually, I think you're guided more. You're more intuitive, perhaps, so you've got more answers. And I think you can feel at a deeper level as well. The closeness, it could be headaches, it could be tendonitis, it could be carpal tunnel syndrome, it could be plantar fasciitis. It could be knee, hip, elbow, wrist problems, inflammation. It could also be autoimmune conditions, asthma, eczema. Just we need pretty much everything from head to toe, mentally as well as physically. More of the mental health side of things has come into my practice more in more recent years. To start with, I wouldn't have practiced so much that way. I would have been treating a lot of back pain, and I'm really good at treating chronic back pain. No issues at all with someone who's got a back problem. To me, that's just really easy because it's going to be restricted, inflamed, and misaligned. It's very easy to correct that. The more tricky things then is the mental health side of things, and that's more the area I've gone into now. And probably just because of the skill that I've developed over the years, I'm more able to do that type of work. Whereas at the beginning of my practice, probably wouldn't have actually had the skill for that anyway. But the osteopathy teaches you that you can help so many people with so many conditions because everything is connected with everything else. So you could work on someone's jaw and it would affect their knee, or you could work on someone's hip and it would affect their shoulder, or you could be working on their spine and it's going to get rid of their headaches and migraines. And like I was saying earlier about maybe the irregular periods or period pain, you could be working on that because you're working through the spinal mechanics. So that's why we treat the patient, not the condition. And I'm treating a lot of children with cerebral palsy and helping them feed better and helping them take the next step into their progression, whatever that could be, whether that's sitting up or starting to crawl or stand, walk. But a lot of the work is with being able to feed better and also be able to sleep better, because we're also able to help the sleeping, insomnia. The work I'm doing, it's more with the lymphatic system. So the cerebrospinal fluid makes up part of the lymphatic system. And the medical profession have only known about that really in the last 14 years, the science behind it. Whereas we've been working with that for all of these years, and really since the founder of osteopathy in 1974. But the science has only been the last 14 years about the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is that cerebrospinal fluid flowing around the brain, which cleanses the brain and keeps the brain healthy. And a lot of the symptoms in patients that I see, it's because they've got a dysfunction in that lymphatic system. They're not healing. The brain isn't healing. And it's sitting in toxicity. So they may have had an injury, which can come from birth or come from childhood. And as an adult, they're suffering with depression or anxiety because of their delivery or because they've had an injury to their head as a child. And they're not presenting with that problem until then they're older. So that's how I'm now working a lot with mental health issues, is working through the cranium mainly.
So in that instance, we'd say let's just pick depression because we kind of started to talk about it. It's so interesting that you share that you're not treating the depression, you're treating the patient. And some of these things might have been things that have happened in childhood, but they're manifesting itself in an adult person. What are you doing there? How are you connecting, and how's it making a difference for them?
So depression may come about because of toxicity in the brain. So if we look back at what I was saying earlier about structure governing function, so the structure here would be the organ of the brain. The brain is an organ, and it's got many aspects within the brain that control our emotions. And if then you correct the structure, you will improve the function. So I say that depression, as this example, is a symptom of dysfunction of the organ, which is the brain. So helping the brain to heal from an injury, you're going to help them the symptom of, in this case, depression. So if you look at the basic anatomy of the brain, you've got the hippocampus and the amygdala, and that's in the temporal bone, so on the side of the head. And that is where we will regulate our emotions and store our memories and connect with other people. You've then got the vagus nerve, and this helps regulate stress. And you've then got your neurotransmitters, your dopamine and your serotonin, and other aspects of the brain which control all of the functions in your body. You've got like 3 different axes in the brain. So you've got your hypothalamus, pituitary, gonadal axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, thyroid axis, and hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. And these are just a few of the areas in the brain. But if you've got toxicity because your lymphatic system is dysfunctional, then you can affect your mood that way. You can affect your temperature regulation. You can affect your energy and your ability to deal with stress. You're dysregulated. You perhaps then you're unable to listen properly and to process what you're listening to, and then be able to process at speed. So all of that is then just because if the lymphatic system has failed to work because it's been injured, your brain is sitting in a degree of toxicity, which will then affect the neurotransmitters in the brain, like the dopamine and serotonin. And you're stuck with this condition that you've got, but just because the brain needs healing. And that's the work that I do, is to help the brain heal, help it repair, which is pretty much bringing drainage and circulation to that part where the blockage is. And that's where I can feel the blockage. I know where it is in the brain. And then I can, with my fingers, my hands, I'm able to aid the flow of fluid into the area where it's not flowing. And that brings the miracles. It brings resolution. Yeah, incredible. It's amazing. Like I would never think that a lot of these diagnoses, you'd be able to remove the diagnosis from someone, because you would think if you've got schizophrenia, you've got schizophrenia. You're on drugs, you're on medication, and you're not going to come off those. Or if you've got dementia, you've got dementia. How can you come back from dementia? You don't think it's possible, do you? Or with depression. But then I see it, I witness it. I see these patients heal from these dreadful conditions that they've got. And it's because they've got the ability to heal themselves. They're only struggling and suffering because there's something dysfunctional within the anatomy of the body. And that's usually because they've been injured.
So things like dementia. So my mum's a dementia nurse for 20 plus years, I think. She worked, and she often tells me some of the stories, and we often talk about it. How can this help heal some of those people that have been diagnosed with dementia? She was working in dementia homes. She would tell me a story about an older lady who loved dogs, and she would have all these teddies, and she'd get all the teddies together, and she'd take the teddies out, and she would stand by the door waiting for the door to open. She was in no harm, but she was always looking to take her dogs out for a walk, and she would just stay there all day because she was like just waiting for the door, etc., not realising obviously where she was or what had happened, and the fact that even her dogs weren't, there were stuffed animals, they weren't real dogs. And my mum always talks to me about those sorts of instances. What's happening there, and then is that something that can potentially heal if they go through this type of treatment?
So I would probably say no, not necessarily, because you need to work on someone really when they've been recently diagnosed, or so I would say with a recent diagnosis. And a lot of the work we're doing is to prevent that anyway. We want to try and prevent dementia. So if you've had a concussion and it hasn't been dealt with, you're more likely to get dementia. So you would want to get your concussion treated. If you've ever had a concussion, have somebody look at it and treat it. Make sure your brain is healthy, because if it's not, you're more likely to get dementia. Now, dementia is changeable. It is just a label that's been given. It depends how bad it is. And so when you're suggesting this patient, depends how long has that patient actually had that diagnosis for, and then how equipped is that person at being able to have received treatment, change their lifestyle, change their diet. So there's a lot more to it than just the hands-on treatment. You have to look at somebody's sleep, their activity levels, exercise levels, their detoxing. You want to look at their gut health and supplements and brain exercises, the environment that they're in. So there's an aspect that is treatment based, but you can't. It's like you can't do it all on your own. You have to have the patient working with you, because you could free something up, but then they're eating junk food, processed foods. They're up all night. They're smoking. They're drinking. They're in a relationship which is not good for them. They're a pessimist, and they don't go into nature.
I see. So it's a holistic approach.
Very holistic. Oh, yeah. Generally, you'd want to be having an anti-inflammatory diet. So if someone's eating a lot of sugar and processed food, it causes inflammation. And our gut is linked with our brain. Our gut is our second brain. It's so important that if you've got a brain issue, you have to look at your gut, and you've got to restore your gut as well as your brain. So you find that maybe with someone who is institutionalized or within a home, they're not going to be able to get the care that they would need for their brain health. So you want to not be in that situation in the first place. But I think the diagnoses can be changed, definitely, if you can work with someone early enough. And also with those cases where the family know that the dementia has stemmed from a certain date, and they know that there was a head injury around about that time as well, because that's easier to work with. You know that it's come about as a result of that. So the cases I've worked on, that's where it's been effective, because it is a concussion that has then not been addressed, it's not been treated, it's not been healed, the body hasn't dealt with it. And so then the dementia happens, and dementia really is just, it's a memory issue. And we've all got a degree of a memory issue. So if you've had any trauma at all to your temporal bone, which has got your hippocampus in it and your amygdala, then that's going to affect your memory. And if you have a memory issue for long enough, your memory issue is going to just be on decline, isn't it? And then if you're eating the wrong foods, not going to sleep at the right time, you haven't got a good routine, not doing brain exercises, you're not making more brain cells, then it's a slippery slope to the diagnosis of dementia. But at any point you can reverse that, and the body can heal. I really believe that it doesn't matter how long you've had a problem, you can heal, but you have to have the resources to do that, and the inclination, and the belief, the desire, the enthusiasm. It's really difficult to change anything. It's hard, isn't it? If you want to heal from something, you've got to participate in that healing journey. You can't expect to go to somebody and they're the person that's going to heal you. You have to participate in that journey as well. And a lot of that also comes from self-worth. You have to feel worthy enough to heal and to get better. So unpicking, there's a lot of unpicking to do when a patient comes. It's the consultation is very much driven around their lifestyle and talking about where these problems have stemmed from and what changes they could make in their life that's going to bring about that response in healing.
Very different approach if I went to see my GP.
Very different, yes.
Completely different. I went to my GP. I appreciate that, very busy and stressful time, rushed for time. Sorry. but there probably wouldn't be any conversations about my lifestyle or where did that come from.
No, some of them are better than others. Some of them will make time to discuss lifestyle. It depends what type of doctor they are, doesn't it? It depends what type of GP they are. But generally, I term that the sickness industry. I work in the health industry. It's a big difference. I want people to get better. I don't want people to keep coming back to me either. I want to find the resolution for them to find it, for me to help them find it, so they don't keep coming back. Because I want my practice to be open for new people, for me to help more people. If I keep having the same patients come back, I can't help the newer patients. There isn't, the business for me is more in the new patients coming, not the old ones keep coming back. Whereas the medical profession, they're prescribing drugs and they keep coming back for more drugs. That is the business model, prescription based. So there is a big difference. Yeah, we want to find the reason for the suffering. We don't want to just treat the symptoms. You've got to work out where are the symptoms coming from, why are they there, and then treat the reason that they've become a symptom in the first place. So a symptom perhaps before dementia would be brain fog. So I say to people, take that seriously. So I published a book last year called Mental Clarity, to try to educate people and empower people to make better decisions. Because if you can treat brain fog and a little bit of memory issue now when you've got it, rather than actually then waiting until it's got really, really bad. And by that point, you can't even be bothered to change your lifestyle. We haven't got the facility to. We haven't even got the motivation to at that point, or the discipline that it takes, because the brain fog is so bad. So you've got much more energy, and when you start off on the cycle of being unwell, at the beginning of it, rather than even halfway through or the end of it, it's really difficult. So I always say to people, every single symptom you've got, take seriously and take action on it. Get rid of it. Don't put up with it. You should not be putting up with a headache. You shouldn't be putting up with a migraine or a back pain or arthritis. And arthritis is another subject in itself, because so many people are told that they've got arthritis. That's it, they give up. Okay, hip replacement, knee replacement for me then at some point. Or I've just got to live with it. It's not true. You don't have to just live with it. You can actually improve that joint and reverse what's going on, or at least stop it from getting worse. Maybe you can't reverse it, because actually arthritis is just the aging process, and we are all aging, and we can't stop that. But we can slow it down, and we can prevent it getting worse. I have a lot of patients with arthritis that they then don't need replacement surgery, or if they do have it, they've had another 10 years out of their joint before they've had it. And who knows how long that person's going to live for anyway. If they're living comfortably and they've got function, generally they're okay. Surgery is warranted at some point, of course, and I refer people for surgery as well. So I'm not against it, and I'm not against medicine overall, but for it not to be the first thing that you try. And sometimes medicine is needed to get somebody out of a really bad crisis situation. Like sometimes it's just necessary because you can't act quick enough. But on the whole, you want that to be the last resort. You don't want it to be the first resort, because often then one medication leads to another medication, and then you don't even know what's going on in your body then, because you're not sure what symptom to treat, because you've got so many to treat.
So someone has arthritis, so that's an interesting topic there. They're coming to you, I don't know, would they come to you before they've been diagnosed, or as part of being diagnosed, or
Mixed.
Are they coming to you as I almost feel like they're coming to you as a last resort, which is they've already gone to the GP, they have this diagnosis. What can they do at that stage?
So it's mixed. I get patients that would come to me first. I diagnose the arthritis and I explain that's probably what it is that's at least causing their symptoms. And then I maybe suggest an X-ray or a scan for confirmation. And that is more to get them on board with, they have to pull their finger out. They have to take some action now. Now they know that they've got that. If you want to reverse it, or whatever the condition is, or you want to stop it getting worse, you've got to participate in that journey, which means you've got to move. Even if it hurts, you're going to have to move. You're going to have to change your diet. You're going to have to change your attitude. So I will see patients that haven't been diagnosed. Then I'll see patients that have been told that they actually need surgery. They need to replace the joint because it's bone on bone. And then anyone really in between along that journey. But it is about that person then changing their lifestyle. And diet is huge. Because you want your body to be in alkalinity. You don't want it in acidity. An acidic environment is where illness is. That's where we have parasites and viruses and bacteria and deterioration. So we want an alkaline environment because that's where we're strong, we're healthy, we're vibrant, we've got energy, and we can do something and create a reversal of what's going on. And diet plays a huge part in that because processed food and sugar and bad fats, it causes acidity. So that is not going to help the arthritis. So if I've got a patient who I consider that they probably would need a replacement joint because it's that bad, they need to stop drinking the alcohol. They need to stop having so many coffees. They can't be eating sweets, cakes, pasta, rice, pizza. They need to go to the gym. They need to exercise. They need to do weight-bearing exercise. They need to sweat and perspire to get rid of toxins. They need to get out in nature. They need to ground, taking their shoes and socks off and grounding and doing deep breathing exercises. Controlling stress, because stress plays absolute havoc with arthritic joints as well. And using maybe supplements like natural supplements, for example, like turmeric, or just using turmeric powder is amazing. You could make a turmeric latte, and that's just a really potent anti-inflammatory drink. Or using arnica, natural homeopathic cream, which is known as an anti-inflammatory. So you can see that the patient really needs to participate in a journey of wellness. But it's so easy to take a pill. It's so much easier to take a pill, isn't it?
It's so interesting to listen to you. I know we were talking about arthritis, but I feel like you could be talking to anyone about anything that's going on.
Yes.
And recommending a diet which is without processed foods, which is without sugar, which is without alcohol. Funny enough, I write about this extensively in the book.
Yeah,
with no medical background.
Wow.
And I feel like it was the diet that lifted my depression proactively, along with walking, lifting, all those sorts of things. So if I followed all of the kind of like, I tried to imagine that I was an athlete. What would an athlete do? What would Ronaldo do? What would a top athlete do to look after their mind and their body?
That's so good.
And so all of last year, I went about 10 months or so, most of last year. And I went, all of that period with no alcohol, no sugar, no takeaways, all just eating natural whole foods. The sort of foods you get from the greengrocer. Very limited on anything else outside of that. I lost half my body fat during that time. So I went from 25% body fat down to just above 10. And mentally, physically, everything about me was better. The way I was showing up for my family, how I felt. After about 4 months, that's when I started writing the book, actually. I actually wrote the book as a note to myself to say, I'm feeling amazing all the time. And I started jotting it down as, I want to remember this moment. Because I know as soon as I start going off track again, or having those types of foods again, then I know I'm not going to feel great again. Like from feeling depressed and low mood for a really, really, really long time, really long period of time. And it's incredible by simply being out in nature, eating natural foods for an extended period of time. It's after that 4 month, 120 days. That's what I recommend in the book, to give yourself that time, that break, because most adults have never done that.
No.
And actually, I talk about it in the definition of substances, which, if you define sugar as a substance which you're putting into your body, that goes down to childhood. So, has there ever been a day? And I challenge this in the book as well, which I talk about, which is whether it's a substance, whether it's alcohol or sugar or it's whatever, has there been a day or even an extended period of time, more than a week, where you haven't had a substance that isn't natural in your body? It's incredible, the benefits as soon as you start taking it out. And obviously I was reasonably healthy anyway going into that. I had some depression.
Yeah.
But physically and everything else I was healthy, but wow, I mean the depression lifted, everything changed.
The brain needs good fat and water. So when you change your diet, you start feeding your brain with what it needs. It's so surprising the number of people that don't actually drink enough water and that really struggle with the advice to drink more water. Cheers. So I would say you at least got to drink 2 litres, between 2 litres and 3 litres of water a day, depending on the size of that person and what they're doing day to day. They're physically active, they need more water because they need to hydrate more. But some people can't even be disciplined to drink enough water. So it's quite challenging, isn't it, to be disciplined and to do all of the right things. And the majority of people just can't do it because it's tough. But also then that stems to also the reason that they're in the situation, because they probably have got an injury that they haven't dealt with, which is absorbing their energy, and then they haven't got the energy for discipline. So it's not like it's a fault of theirs, but it's the condition that they've got that they just need to seek treatment for. And then you can improve in your discipline. So I would treat people who are procrastinating by, if they want to procrastinate less, heal the brain, get good fats to the brain, heal the gut, drink more water. But yeah, the gut is so important. And I don't know if you worked with your guts when you were going through that with like probiotics, prebiotics.
No, I didn't do any, but I was definitely, so what I found was that when I was going through the really dark times, the difficult times, and I was able to think about, I always felt bloated. I've always felt something in my stomach, but I also then relate that back to the foods I was eating at the time. I'll go down to the little bakery that's just down the road, and I'd have a few treats. But that's also off the back of, I was having that because I was drinking heavily the night. Well, I was drinking the night before, whether it's heavily or not, but just even a bottle of wine. Then you have the foods the next day, which is full of unhealthy, fats, sugars, all those types of things, on a repeated cycle over a long period of time.
Yes.
And that's where I feel like it crept in with the depression.
Those things create your bowel to be leaky. So there is only one cell which separates. So the lining of your gut is one cell deep. It's tiny. It's very easy to get holes within that lining and allow toxins out. And they go to the brain. And a lot of people have got a damaged blood-brain barrier. So the blood-brain barrier is meant to be there to keep the toxins out. Well, a lot of people have a broken blood-brain barrier. Because let's face it, most of us have had a bang to the head. Even if you don't think it's a concussion, you've had a bang or a blow to the head. You've had a trauma. And this affects the blood-brain barrier, and it allows the toxins in to the brain. So then you've got the toxicity in your gut and in your brain. It is going to affect your cognitive function, and it's going to lead to decline cognitively and emotionally. So we have to heal the gut. It's the fats, the bad fats that a lot of the places cook their food in. That's one of the factors that breaks the gut barrier down. So if you're eating a lot of processed foods, pretty much guaranteed you're going to have leaky gut. Then you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to have a declining brain function. cognitive function. Your memory's not going to be great, probably not regulating emotions that well, probably not dealing with stress very well, you're probably not sleeping very well. And your energy is going to be affected. And you're just going to dip in and out of mood. All of it because you're eating processed food.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Since I started eating cleaner over the last number of years or so,
Yeah.
that bad fat I've really noticed. So
Mm.
let's just say, because I also sometimes thought I was eating a healthy food. So, for example, go for like maybe a brunch or something where I'll have an omelette, for example. And after that omelette, I was thinking, I've eaten a healthy meal now, but I feel terrible in the afternoon.
Mm.
And I couldn't figure it out until it happened on a number of occasions. And I realised, I just thought, it's the way they're cooking the eggs.
Mm.
It's the fats that they're using.
Yes.
Because I'd get all shaky and I'd actually feel almost get ill. Like as in, like I'd be like, ooh, am I coming down with a cold? But it's only when it happened after a number of times I thought, normally I'm eating like a chicken salad or something for lunch, which is completely clean.
Mm.
There's nothing in it other than healthy fats, etc.
Yeah.
It's that, and it's that level that's not, my body isn't used to it. And I just thought, yeah, there's some real toxins in there, or whatever it is, which is really having a horrible negative effect on this food.
What your body was doing in that instance was detoxing. So when we see flu-like symptoms as detoxing, we don't see it as a virus or an illness or you've caught something. It's your body's way of detoxing and clearing. So we would see that as a good thing that's happening because it's cleansing you. It's not a bad thing. So that's what your body was doing naturally. You didn't realise, but you were thinking, I'm coming down with something because your body was trying to throw back out those toxins that you'd taken in. So you were going through that response, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's good to have that sensitivity. That's actually what you want.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to feel your body, feel those changes, because that's the way that your body communicates with you. We have to listen better to whatever the symptom is. Whatever that message is, we need to listen to it and take action, which is what you've done. It's really good that you've written a book as well, and you can share that with other people.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I suppose I'm writing it from a non-scientific perspective, which is just this is what's happened with me, and I've been very reflective on that, and I've journaled. That made me feel like this. When I've slept more, it made me feel like this. Oh, actually, I feel better in the morning because of doing X, Y, and Z. And a lot of it comes back to sleep and having the right nutrition. So actually, I'd really love talking to you today. Like I could talk to you for many hours. So I was just thinking for the final piece here, what we could do, if someone wanted to be preventative, because I feel like some of this, again, something that I mentioned in the book was about thinking about your future self and how to prevent the future diseases and future illness. What would be your guidance if someone is perfectly healthy today, or they feel like they're perfectly healthy? What sort of lifestyle should they be living to prevent future illness or prevent coming to see you?
So I would say the first thing is if you've got a child, take your child to be checked for their birth. Because if you're an adult with a mental health crisis or illness, it could actually be from your birth. So if you want to try to prevent that happening in your offspring, then the best place to start is when they are born, in taking them to somebody who practices similar to me with craniosacral osteopathy, so that they can assess the health of the brain and the nervous system. So start really young. And it doesn't matter what age either, but just any age. The younger the better. Because it will start with colic or reflux or a sleep issue or a behaviour issue or a problem with concentrating, listening and attention. So this is how an issue presents at the beginning. So if you've got a child who's presenting with any of these things which you know are not quite right, it's not right that your child is still waking up 3 times in the night, or it's not right that your child is still wanting bottles in the night and you know that they shouldn't be, or they are the child that's kicking and hitting other children, yet you love your child so much and you're providing everything, yet they're a little brat. There's a reason for that, and it actually can be corrected. And then you are preventing the anxiety and the depression later in life. And so that person will do so much better in their work and making a difference to other people if you can help them in their childhood. So I'd say the first place is children. Children's health is priority. But after that, I think everyone should see somebody like myself to know if there's anything wrong with you. Like if you've got the money, you've got the resources to, why would you not go and see someone to be checked? Because we can feel the things that are hiding that you can't quite see yet, because we can feel them. You might be thinking you're okay, but actually then you're not. But one appointment could give you an answer. One appointment, you can assess the whole of the spine, the joints, and the craniosacral system, and it's just one appointment. The AO scan technology. So this is extraordinary at picking out things before they've happened, because you're seeing ahead of time because of using this technology of quantum physics. And I use, like on average, if you take 4 scans of someone, maybe over a couple of weeks, you can get an average then. One scan isn't that helpful because the scan is going to pick up on the energy of the people that you've been around that day. So one day isn't actually a true representation of your life, whereas it's better if you have several scans. It's more of a representation of how you live. And you could then take an average of those scans. And if I find that on every scan something is showing up, then you can look at that in more detail and help that patient understand that that's perhaps where they need to focus. And a lot of that comes down to nutrition and detoxing. But sometimes it's like specifically for them that they need to do a particular supplement, or needing to have a particular food in their diet that they're not having, or do exercise, weight bearing exercise, or need to address their sleep routine. But so the scanning can help somebody navigate their health journey because it gives them an idea. Once they read the scan results, they agree with it. They can see it's like, that is so accurate. I know these things, but I hadn't realised that those things may lead to a problem later in my life. But any symptom that you've got that's persistent, to take seriously and address it as soon as you've got it. If you have no symptoms, then that's okay. Maybe see someone once a year or twice a year. It's like, we're quite quick to go to the dentist every 6 months for a checkup. They're brilliant at marketing because they bring you back every 6 months. I don't see that our profession or chiropractors, physios generally do that. We tend to not ask the patient necessarily to come back at a prescriptive time, like 6 months. Some patients, yes, they come every 3 or 4 months, 2 or 3 months. But generally, even if you had a new patient once, you wouldn't think to tell them to come back after 6 months. You kind of leave it to them. That's possibly because we're not very good at business. Should actually ask them all to come back after 6 months. But no, it's just picking up on any symptom. And if you don't have a symptom, then maybe you can check anyway to make sure that everything is fine. Because do you know that you've got brain fog anyway? Do you know that you're procrastinating? Do you know that you're having mood swings? Sometimes we're not aware of it. We just think, oh, getting older, being a bit more forgetful recently. But it's whether things persist. If you have something that's come and it's gone, fine. Some things you would expect to have for maybe a week or two, but then it goes. Anything that's persisting is worth pursuing. And the craniosacral work is just amazing to be evaluated that way, to look inside your body, or someone else look inside your body to actually see if there's anything there that could be addressed and help you be a better version of yourself, achieve more in your day, and share more light with the world, because we want to be shining brighter. we're all here as a frequency of light, and some of us are more dim than others, and some are a bright light. And all of us, for humanity, needs to shine a bright light. So even if you just come from that perspective that you just want to be brighter and do more to help others, then you could seek some treatment so that you've got that alignment and you've got flow and drainage, and that you're healthy, you're detoxing efficiently.
I've loved talking to you today. It's been a really incredible conversation. I wish we could talk for longer. If someone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way of reaching out?
And I would say worcester-osteo.com or braincareexpert.com. My book is called Mental Clarity. That can be found on Amazon. And I have another book, and that is on Amazon as well, and that is called Miracle Worker. And I think they're probably the best ways.
Amazing.
I'm on social media now. I've jumped into social media in the last 4 or 5 months. And I'm releasing videos 3 times a day to try and empower, inspire, and educate as many people as I can reach.
It's incredible. All right, well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. Thank you. It's really been enjoyable. Thank you.